You don't have to sell 100 homes to start creating content, but you do have to stop faking expertise and start being honest because you haven't accomplished a thing in your business. So, in today's video, I'm talking about personal branding and content creation, and being the student versus the expert in your content and just being honest. I think honesty is something that is very tough to find. I mean, how many Facebook friends or Instagram friends do you see that paint this beautiful life that they live, and then you go and see them in person, and then they tell you about everything wrong in their life and things that aren't going well, and you're kind of sitting there going, man, I thought you were doing really well. And that's okay, I guess, if from the personal side. And I'm criticizing a little bit of content there, but when it comes from an agent, it's very important that you come from a position of honesty in your content. Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm holding this guitar today because I've had this guitar since I was 16 years old. So I've had it 26 years. And I am not an expert. I'm still very much a student. In fact, I took about 8 years off from playing guitar, and there's so many songs that I think of that I want to play. And now I've got to go back and be the student. And it's like, I'm holding this guitar because it's kind of more of an accountability piece for me to continue to play guitar, continue to put out content. And that's what it is for me. And it's honestly something for me to hold in these videos because I'm probably not going to play it for you unless you come up with a song request and put it in the comments. Then I'll show you how bad I am at guitar. I'm not terrible, but I'm not the greatest guitarist in the world. So the two positions from which to create from when it comes to your content that you're putting out online, that is the student who learns in public, or you're the expert teaching from experience. You're literally one or the other when it comes to putting out content for your real estate business. What kind of drives me a little crazy is when you see an agent that has probably never sold a deal, but yet their boldness and confidence to put out information that is obviously false about their business kind of drives me a little nuts. And it's a little overdone online. And, it's a lot of borrowed reputations versus just being honest. And I think it's kind of cool. I saw this guy that's been going, I guess, more viral. And I think he was like an agent up in Virginia with like Keller Williams. It's this young guy, and he's doing, this is my first 30 days in real estate. Day one, this is what I did. Day two, this is what I did. And he talks about the clients, and like, it's kind of funny because he held himself accountable to being really, really honest on camera and talking to people, and like kind of through satire about his real estate business and like his tone and everything. I'm sure he's probably a little bit different in person. Everyone has kind of has a camera voice and a camera personality. But what was awesome about it is that he was like, my goal this month, my first month, is to have 3 contracts. And I think he ended the month with two contracts, a listing, and a buyer or two or something like that. And like, he ends his 30-day. I think it's the first day I saw his video. And then he's like, join me tomorrow for the next 30 days in real estate. And like, just the honesty from it, because he's like, you can hear the grind of what he's doing and the open houses and everything he's doing to build his business. But I love it because the reason why he's doing so well is because he's coming from being the student and being authentic of exactly who he is and where he's going. There's nothing wrong with borrowing reputation from like your team and stuff and like their expertise, but you don't need to lie to the public because they will sniff it out in a hurry. Because you can borrow all you want, but when you get into a real conversation and a real meeting and a real negotiation, you're really going to, we know who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, as Warren Buffett would say. So let's talk about student content. Let's get on the good side of this. Okay, enough criticizing fake content creators. Well, the students' content can include what they're learning, right? You can cover what you're learning, and maybe it's about learning neighborhoods. Like, you don't have to talk about like learning contracts or I'm learning a listing presentation. When it comes to content, you got to think about, number one, go back to my last video about personal brand and your ideal your ideal client and working backwards and what you want the outcome to be with that person. And then you can take that from a student mentality and talk about what you're learning. You're learning about developments. You're learning about houses. You're doing housing tours. You could talk about what you're testing. It could be, you could just be testing your content. It could be you're testing, oh, should I do like a development video? Should I do an area video in my town? Maybe I want to test condo content, and people will see that. But be authentic about what you're learning, right? It could be conversations with experienced agents if you want to do some type of interview format, or conversations with your team leader and talking about the things that you learned today. There's nothing wrong with having some of that raw, authentic content in conjunction with building local expertise. I will say building your expertise around neighborhoods and pricing and what's available, and being that person that is in the know is important. And it's also cool to maybe implement some of the stuff you may be learning from like your team leader or broker, or from your company. Maybe you went to a new event or heard a new podcast and you're inserting some of that piece. Next is talking about mistakes and early lessons. Maybe you put out a reel that is more satire about a buyer that ghosted you, or you do that video, or like a trendy video for open houses when no one shows up, right? Like, you can kind of make light of it, but you're showing your activity through your content in a positive fashion that supports your desired outcome from your ideal person, and building your personal brand, right? It could be a challenge that you're documenting. It could be a tough negotiation. It could be a challenge of maybe no one showed up in your open houses. Maybe you publicly declared on social media that for the next 30 days, you're going to put out 30 pieces of content. Maybe you didn't do them all, right? Maybe you just got too busy, or you were just lazy, and you own it. And so those are some of the items that a student content could include. There's a million more examples. Next, we're going to talk about the experts content that it should come from. So the experts content should be problems actually solved. How did you solve these problems? How did you solve this solution for this person moving from out of town that was looking to move to the area? How did you solve that solution of getting them into that school district? Those are great storytelling ideas. I know people, you see people throw up pictures of like the wins, right? The celebrations, the closings, the contracts. But if you're going to do that type of content, you need to bring a very personal brand touch to that and dive deep into the story of how that picture came to fruition, and explain that to your audience. You're missing a huge opportunity. I think you should share new listings and you should be excited about it. But from an experts, you talk about problem solving that problem of a parent looking for a condo, and your experience working with parents over the past 10 years, if you're an experienced agent, of how you've been able to sell a condo and then turn around and sell it 4 to 5 years. And that maybe you don't have a client that hasn't gone to the closing table, that hasn't made at least 5+ figures on every condo you've ever sold. And that is literally the case for us. Repeatable results. And that comes through, you could interview your past clients. You could continue to talk about repeatable results as far as maybe how many deals you closed. If you want to post about that, maybe you want to do it through Google reviews. Maybe you want to talk about mistakes that created wisdom. Like for me, mistakes that created wisdom was how I designed my team in the beginning. And some of the mistakes I made of not being built for a company for growth. I thought I was built for growth, but I totally wasn't. We've revised our company and the way we do things. Maybe the mistakes I've made in hiring new agents and trusting them to either do their own training or not holding them to standards. It's a little bit of a contrarian belief. So maybe challenging, maybe it's systems tested in the real world. Maybe this is also kind of a fun one, is that we use Fellow a lot. And, when we launched Fellow, I was real exploratory about some of my content that I was putting out on Facebook, because that's where my most of my ideal clients are. And I was talking about, I've got this new platform, and it's to do home values and be a place where if you own a home, you don't even have to be my client. You can use it and have your own data hub for understanding your equity in your home and how you could use it, and more information. It's a great way to catch clients. So those are a couple of things that, as far as where you could come from when it comes to being an expert teaching from experience. Agents destroy trust when they borrow someone else's success and present it as their own. Please don't be this agent. If you're in a college town, please don't pretend you know everything it's okay to be wrong and it's okay to ask questions. I'm going to go ahead and give you that permission right now. And you can be an expert in one area and a student in the other. So, you know, like for me, I train college interns who become agents all the 21-year-olds shouldn't act like veteran agents. And I tell them not to be, but that person can produce fascinating content about learning prospecting, attending a first appointment, earning their license, or trying to generate a first closing. I will say the best place to go is to your sphere, and talking about like those wins, those stepping stone, those milestone wins are really big, and getting the attention of your sphere, which is probably where you should find your first client. So, an expert is building and leading a productive real estate team, right? Like developing young agents or operating in a college town market is what we talk a lot about. And a student would be the areas that we're still exploring, like technologies and investor strategies, because the landscape has changed with like Airbnbs, and understand the dynamics. And are you too flooded? Do you need more? And how to scale your leadership. I mean, that's a tough one that I'm going through right now, is trying to figure out how do you not become the bottleneck of your company? How do you scale leadership? So I'm very much always a student in that category, and I don't think I can get enough education when it comes to that. So here's a practical exercise for you if you're watching this video, is to create a credibility bank. Is start to write down the wins in your life. What's going on that's wins, even the small wins? What is some of the experiences that you're creating for yourself or you're doing on a day-to-day basis? What problems have you solved for people? Maybe you contacted somebody that didn't know the market, and they just literally didn't know one simple thing that you thought everyone knew, and you explained it to them, and that was a problem solved. Maybe it's mistakes you survived. Maybe it's you missed doing your first wood infestation report on a deal that was supposed to go to closing and you screwed that up. It's okay. You can always turn those for the good, but create that credibility bank so you have some content to base yourself off of. And then your curiosity bank is, what are you curious about? What are some subjects that you are the student of? What are you testing, and what are you questioning? What have you questioned lately? And write those things down, because that'll really get the brain going. So really the takeaway with this video is, you don't have to know everything to create content. You just have to tell the truth about where you are.